Hey, welcome to Facts at 5. I'm Michael Clark. It is Tuesday, June the 9th, 2020. I'm here at the LTV Media Center in wonderful Waynescott, New York, with my co-host, Morgan Vaughan. Say hello, Morgan.
Hello, Morgan.
Hey, I'm going to jump right into this whole defunding the police issue.
Yep.
Just to try to clear up a few things, because that's what we're about. That's what we try to do, is bring you the confirmed information. We got this is from the New York Times, actually. So they're talking about advocates for police reform are making the case that the phrase defund the police doesn't mean what many people think it means. Be not afraid, says Christy Lopez, a Georgetown University law professor. Defunding the police is not as scary or even as radical as it sounds, she says. What it actually means is reducing police budgets and no longer asking officers to do many jobs that they often don't even want to do, such as resolving family and school disputes, moving homeless people into shelters, and so on. Instead, funding for education, healthcare, and other social services would increase. So essentially, the challenge for advocates is that many people equate defunding with a major reduction in policing. And you see this on social media all the time. People say, "What? They can do away with the police force, whatever." It's not about that. It's basically taking money from one pot and putting it into another pot. Say, for example, I don't know, some kind of service that, maybe it's a mental health thing. People wouldn't necessarily, they're looking at people possibly not necessarily calling the police for something like that isn't like that, and taking the money that the police would use for that, putting into a group for mental health or whatever, and that's what the focus would be on. Kind of a, they're more focused, I think, on a slow change, or over a period of time, or at least looking into things and trialing things in that way. So
it is a very clunky expression that whoever came up with it, it is like a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel.
Yeah.
It is not, that's not what I don't think they're talking about. What they're talking about is exactly what you said. So this reminded me, we were talking about this morning, it reminded me of an article I read in the New Yorker years ago by Malcolm Gladwell. That's also, I think he put it on his podcast, Revisionist History. I think that's his. I'm sorry. Anyway, he put it on his podcast, which was from 2006.
Right.
And it was really, really interesting. It's about the solutions to problems like homelessness, violent police officers, and high polluting cars. All three. So in this story, what he talks about is there's this guy called, the story itself is called $1 Million Murray. And Murray Barr was a homeless alcoholic man in Reno, Nevada. Two local cops, Steve Johns and Patrick O'Brien, tracked chronic inebriates for 6 months and found that just one of them ran up a bill of $100,000 in a single year.
Wow.
So
that was 2006.
2006, right?
Okay.
$2006. Uh-oh. So if you have, say you have 10 chronic inebriates, chronic drunks in your town, and the cops are going, somebody's calling 911, the cops go, they get the ambulance there, but all of their time is being taken up on this cause.
And paperwork. And
paid for, that isn't their purview.
Right.
And really shouldn't be their purview.
Right.
They're not trained to deal with people with chronic diseases.
Right.
And so that's what I think this is about. This is about being more smart about the funding in terms of who's going to get it. The cops don't want to be dealing with Murray.
Right.
And not only that, he's costing us $300,000 a year. So they figured out that the 10 years that he had been on the streets, this one man had run up a medical bill as large as anyone else in Nevada at that year.
Wow.
So he cost Nevada more, this one guy,
okay,
than all the other people. And so that's what I think we're talking about. The article goes on to talk about the racial insensitivity and also it's a fantastic article. I highly recommend you look it up. But for what we're talking about today, that's what it's about.
Right.
It's about how to better spend the money.
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes progressives, I would say, this is an opinion, tend to be a little sledgehammery with expressions.
Right.
Rather than
far left, far right, doesn't matter.
Right. We don't. That's not exactly what they need. So I think that it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
I don't know many cops who want to be picking drunks up off the streets and dealing with horrible domestic situations and things that they're not trained to do.
Right. No, I agree. And what happens is they get the message out there, and the message is, it's always about extremes, right?
Right.
People think, well, wait, we just do away with the police department and create something else. Guys with
defund the
brooms
police,
or
and
something.
there's going to be nothing.
It's
right.
It's not.
Not what it
because
is.
we only read headlines and the first
right.
line of a story anyway. So instead
right.
of reading it down, I'm guilty. The New York Times also had an interesting thing saying that nobody knows exactly what will happen, in the communities when they open up, right? In terms of coronavirus. The most likely scenario is that virus cases will continue to surge and fall around the globe for the near foreseeable future. So they put together this list. They consulted with public health experts and scientists to give the tools that we can make our own decision. Whether it's dining in a restaurant, going to church, getting my hair cut, which I desperately need, and we'll get one tomorrow, I hope, when we open. But so these are 5 things. And we kind of know these. We've been talking about them for quite a few months. But just these are things they think you should consider in just keeping things in check. Number 1, check the health of your state and community. To gauge your risk of coming into contact with an infected person, pay attention to the 2 important indicators of COVID-19 in your area, and they are the percentage of tests that are positive and the trend in overall case rates.
And one way you can do that is something that I've been putting up since we started, which is SuffolkCountyNY.gov, and it has an excellent list, daily updates.
And I think we're pretty good here on the East End. I mean, as good as we can be.
Right. Well, especially East Hampton. East Hampton's doing better than Southampton.
Yeah. With those 2 cases. And number 2 was limit the number of your close contacts. You're safest with members of your own household, obviously. If you want to widen your circle to extended family or friends, keep the number of close contacts as low and as consistent as possible. One way to do this is to form a corona bubble. Who knew? Which happens when 2 households form an exclusive social circle. So in other words, just widening it, right? So you got.
Well, we had our little corona bubble here.
That's right. We are a corona bubble.
We are a corona bubble.
This is great.
And we were.
I didn't even know that we were.
I didn't know it either. I never named it. But you, me, and Jason were the corona bubble.
We were.
We were our own corona bubble. And then our extended thing.
We're expanding that
expanding
bubble.
Out, yeah.
But meanwhile, keeping all these things in mind, right? So next thing is manage your exposure budget. They say risk is cumulative. Going forward, you'll need to make trade-offs, choosing activities that are most important to you, like seeing an aging parent and that type of thing, and skipping the things that matter less, right? It kind of makes sense, right? You do what's really, really important. And I think that many of us started doing those things during the time when we were sequestered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And number 4 was keep higher risk activities as short as possible. Every time you make plans, ask yourself, if an infected person happens to be nearby, how much time could I be spending with them, right? So, shorten the duration of time where you're kind of just hanging out. And number 5, keep taking pandemic precautions. And those are the things that we talked about. Keeping a mask handy, obviously, practice social distancing, washing your hands frequently, and adopting stricter quarantine practicing, and of course brushing your teeth.
And of course that. I think some of these things are things that people like to do anyway.
Right. No, I just thought it
maybe
was,
I'm speaking for myself.
Right. So, and then it kind of leads into, these things protect you no matter what.
Right.
What are the things that are kind of up in the air right now?
Well, there was a big kerfuffle yesterday.
Yes.
Because the World Health Organization, one doctor, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, head of WHO's World Health Organization's Emerging Diseases and Zoonosis Unit, said Tuesday that asymptomatic spread is a really complex question and much is still unknown. But she also said that when the transmission of the coronavirus by people who have never developed symptoms is very rare, which was an unfortunate choice of words. And I think that it was sort of the statement, heard around the world.
Yeah.
Because we were all like, wait a second, what? I heard it on the news last night. I was watching with my husband. I was like, wait, what? Can we go back? Did they just say that? Because why? Because
Right.
the whole point of everything we've been doing is that I could be asymptomatic and spread it to you and have no idea.
Right.
Whereas other diseases stop eventually because I get sick and I stay home.
Right.
And I don't spread it. So this was a huge, huge thing. And of course, people are like, see, we said. So now, today, 24 hours later, the World Health Organization is walking it back.
Oops.
Walking it back.
Yep.
Saying that there's so much they don't know. It can still be happening this way. You can still get COVID-19 through asymptomatic cases, which makes a little bit more sense to me because that's what we've been seeing. Otherwise, how could it have spread so much and so many people have it?
Right.
But it was a little bit disturbing. And I think that we all have felt from the beginning, or I'm not going to speak for everybody. I will speak for myself that, the first things we heard were don't wear a mask.
Right.
Then we kept hearing about maybe you should wear a mask. Then now we hear that we should definitely wear masks, and they actually do make a difference. They're not even really sure why. We've talked about this before. Is it because you don't touch your face as much? Mm-hmm. Is it because you realize that you're wearing a mask, so you're not, cuddling up to somebody? Right. So we don't know, but it's one of those things where last night when I was watching this thing, I was like, wait a second, wait. And I think everybody else sort of did as well.
They don't really have a good track record.
Right now, they have not handled this very well, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Important.
Yes. Right. Who's on first? Who doesn't have a good track record?
Who could have done a better job?
All right, so let's get on to right.
Who knows?
I don't know. So, a little bit of good news. There was a golf tournament. By the way, it was where your husband works.
It was where my husband works last Friday.
And he didn't tell you.
He didn't tell me.
And George Stephanopoulos.
George Stephanopoulos.
Yes, he was the one who was he was actually announcing the tournament. So it was against four of the people at the club. Zach Grossman, who was a the club five-time champion, course record holder, paired off in 10 holes match with three other great golfers over there, and they raised $115,000.
Amazing.
For the East Hampton Food Pantry. That's really...
The donations will be divided among food pantries in East Hampton Springs and Amagansett.
Yes.
Fantastic.
It's good. Spreading it around. So that's good news. So there is a possibility we may be seeing, after this, Angela interviewing Andrea Grover and Christina Strassfield, if we're able to get that up in time. If not, we will have that tomorrow.
There was a very long town board work session today, so we're a little crunched.
4 hours and 15 minutes. And
great.
Yeah, so we're kind of rushing around, but thank you once again to our sponsor for Facts at 5, Sound Aircraft Services. And don't forget to follow Facts at 5 on social media, YouTube. Check out our website at ltveh.org. I will be seeing you tomorrow. Have a good night, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Well, today we're going to catch up with Guildhall, which to me is really the premier arts center on the East End. And we love Guildhall at LTV. And joining us today, we're very pleased to have Guildhall's executive director, Andrea Grover, and Christina Strassfield, who is the museum's director and chief curator. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, this has been some time. In some ways, it's been, almost like a bad dream. But at the same token, we are finding ways to reinvent. I know from your recent press release, it says Guildhall Reinventing. So I'm going to start with you, Andrea. This is a tough ship to navigate this summer, but I think if anybody can do it, I think Guildhall can. You've got to have a 90-year history. Tell us, I guess, start from where you are right now, actually, and then you tell us where Guildhall is in terms of, obviously, COVID has changed a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, Angela, I think you're right that Guildhall is well poised to adapt to this new environment because we are really driven by artists. Artists have always been the engine of our activities. And we are really looking to them to help us kind of improvise because each new day brings new information. So we're focusing on our local community, our local artists, musicians, writers, performers, actors, and we're asking them to help us adapt to this new climate by really activating our program this summer and becoming part of the solution on a day-to-day basis. And one of the beautiful things that has happened is the staff, which is composed of many, many creative professionals, is really adapting each day to new information. So we are right now, we're cleaning up the garden in the back part of Guildhall. That's the Furman Garden, our sculpture garden. And as soon as we can, we want to start doing small, safe distanced, comfortable outdoor events there. So we won't know the number of people that we can have as our capacity, but we are aiming towards having local musicians, local performers, actors, etc., really animate that garden and make it magical, even more magical than it is. It's currently a sculpture garden. And then the other thing in regards to artists leading the way, we have this great exhibition coming up that Robert Longo, who's a recent community member, is really leading us on. And it's going to be a benefit exhibition with some of the most renowned American artists who are donating work to benefit Guildhall. So it's very exciting, and I think we are well suited for a continually changing environment like this. And we're kind of in a perverse way looking forward to improvising on a daily basis.
Well, it has been a challenge, but I appreciate that. Do you have an idea yet of when you might be able to start some of those outside events in the Furman Garden? Or is it a day-by-day thing that you're,
It's a day-by-day, but we're hoping in July to start rolling out smaller events and maybe some temporary installations and performance art and things of that nature, but really making the space magical and animated, and I think people want to return to their senses, to something beyond the two-dimensional Zoom call. So even being out and sitting on freshly cut grass and kind of smelling the summer
breathing
air,
some air, not being in your pajamas, maybe, I don't know. It would be interesting. Well, let's talk about, you talked about improvising, and Christina Strassfield, I've known you a long time, and I know you've been doing these art tours virtually, right? I mean, you have, yes. We've at LTV, we did a nice, series covering, the artists in residence or in series last year, and now you are conducting these. Talk about those and how those are going. I mean, what is that like to share the art world via the computer like this?
Well, actually, it's really, really exciting. The best part of the job of a curator is to actually go to artist studios and have a chance to talk about their work and discuss where they're going and where they've come from. Unfortunately, usually that's probably, you don't get to do that as much as you want. So what's happened with these virtual studio tours, I've been able to do 3 every Friday. Originally, we were going to just do it for about a month, but it's been so successful that we've extended it. And I actually think I'm going to extend it beyond even when we get back into the office, because it's a wonderful way to connect with the artists, to have that one-on-one conversation, and it's private. So again, if they're asking me a question, I can answer it. I can try to give my opinion. I can give my critique. I must admit, it's been one of the things that I've enjoyed most about this situation that we're currently in.
That you've talked to on this series?
I've talked to Claire Watson. I've talked to Janice Stanton. I've talked to Roz Diamond. I've talked to there's several other artists now, and I'm blanking out on their names, but it's been wonderful. Some of the artists I've known, some of the artists I haven't known. So it's been a great opportunity to learn more about the community. And it's wonderful because they're willing to ask a question that they probably would not be able to ask in a public forum where there might be other artists around. And I can give my honest assessment of where I feel their work is going, or what recommendations I would make. And of course, they can choose to accept them or not. But the dialogue that I've had has been really very enriching and very satisfying.
I love that. That's very cool. Andrea, in terms of, there are many different areas that I think Guildhall covers, and they're performing arts. I just watched the amazing reading, I thought, with Mercedes Ruehl and Harris Yulin of the Tennessee Williams play. And I kept thinking, how are they going to do that? I thought it was great. I thought that translated really well. That was a very positive experience. Talk about Austin Pendleton, what's going on, because I got wind that he's going to be starring in a James Joyce play.
Yes, that's going to be on Bloomsday. And that was something that was spearheaded by our artistic director, Josh Gladstone. And we've really found that continuing to offer programming online is essential for us delivering on the mission. And also, our normal house, the John Drew Theater, is 360 seats, but obviously there's a wide audience for James Joyce. So it really is only as limited as our outreach in terms of the audience size for this kind of program. Josh is working on another reading right now, which we'll be able to tell you more about soon, but Alec Baldwin is going to be part of it. He also has programs that he's doing with one of our former residents, Dipti Bromthaler, who is a creative writer. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, Guildhall has become this limitless capacity platform for artists. And so we are seeing new ways to maybe continue a hybrid form of presentation that combines the virtual with real in-person performances in the future. And this was trending already, but it's definitely been accelerated by the pandemic and the need to pause and stay at home.
That's very cool. In terms of, I think you have always have an interesting program in the summer and even year round, really, but of people in conversation. How will you do that? Will you be able to do that, or will that be a virtual thing?
We are thinking that those will move out to the garden, weather permitting, okay. And they'll be smaller in capacity, but we will likely live stream those as well. And Florence Fabricant, who is a member of our board, who's the food and wine writer for the New York Times, has been continuously releasing content during the pandemic, so recipes by celebrity chefs. We've been sharing through our Guildhall at Home platform, and she's entirely on board to continue interviewing chefs at Guildhall, regardless of the platform, whether it's online or offline or a hybrid of both. As far as the Hamptons Institute goes, it'll definitely take a different form. It's just, maybe it was in the zeitgeist, but we were planning to do an entire series on moral leadership, tolerance, and peacemaking, and had a phenomenal lineup of people from, from across the area. That's going to be adapted probably to a more local focus kind of conversation. I think the theme is that we're reinvesting and restarting the local economy, both the creative economy and businesses. So we're going to be tapping into people who are in our community already to lead these conversations. It'll look like a very different summer, but in some ways it's a reinvestment in the artists who have always been here and been the engine of Guildhall.
Yeah, I have to say one of my favorite events, if you call that an event at Guildhall, is the clothesline sale. Now, Christina, I'll ask you, will that be happening? Can that happen this summer?
We're having a meeting right after this to discuss what logistics and if what we can do and what's possible. We want to make sure that everyone is safe and the community is safe and the volunteers, but we are looking and trying to explore all different options to see what we can do to make that a reality or to transform it into something slightly different.
In terms of your membership, how have they responded in kind to some of these things, or is it a wait and see? I mean, the season is really just upon us now. So, and I guess also your board of directors, and how is everybody there feeling in terms of outlook? I mean, have you had to, Andrea? Let me ask you that. I'm asking too many questions at once, as I tend to. Have you had to cut staff, and are people on unemployment? Do you have a core staff of people who are still working there? Where are you with that? And tell us.
So I'm actually really proud of where we are right now. I'm not a perfect scenario. We do have 100% of our administrative staff still employed at 100% of their salaries. And I'm very proud of that. That has a lot to do with the board. The board continued giving at the expected level, despite the forecast economically, globally. We have the most devoted trustees imaginable. I think that has to do with the longevity of the institution. We have been around for just about 90 years. We opened during the Great Depression as an antidote to that moment, to that very troubled moment. And there's a sense of ownership and passion for Guildhall in this community that I don't think can be replicated. I mean, institutions that are much younger are always trying to get the community to really feel a sense of commitment to their mission and their place, but it's built into the DNA of Guildhall because we were founded during the Depression. There was not a huge operating budget. The community had to come in as volunteers, and the artists came in to fill this empty vessel that was Guildhall with performing arts and visual arts. So we found that our membership is actually higher than last year. People who are fully aware that they're not going to get their normal perks and privileges of membership are renewing, and some of them are renewing earlier. Our volunteer core, which is 170 people in size, they cannot wait to get back to Guildhall, and most of them are in the vulnerable category of over 60. And they still say that Guildhall means that much to their lives, that they will be there when our doors reopen. And so I've never worked for an institution that had more love and devotion than Guildhall does from its community and support.
Well, the arts community out there is paramount, and it's not just the sea and the sky, but it's everyone's interpretation of all that beauty and I think pain too that we've gone through. So you're not going to kill the arts that quickly. In terms of your benefit, then, just to double check, because we have a little bit of time left. So it is the Robert Longo? Is that you're going to be your fundraiser in August?
Yeah. So Christina will tell you about it, but essentially our traditional tented 300 plus person seated gala is off the table for this season for very good reason. But as artists always let us, an artist swooped in with an idea for Guildhall to fundraise and to recuperate from this massive loss of income that we're experiencing this summer. So Christina can tell you all about that.
It's very exciting. Early on, Robert Longo was supposed to be our August exhibition going along with the fundraiser. And he realized very soon, this wasn't really even the right time to try to do something like this. So he came to us and said, we need to do something to help you raise money that's going to be lost from all of these fundraisings that happen in the summer. And so he said, let's put an exhibition together. He was going to be the backbone for it, reaching out to artists who are his friends. We decided to call it All for the Hall. We've sent out an initial letter to everyone. Robert sent out a letter, and to tell you the response has been truly, truly amazing. So many artists have immediately said yes. We hope to open this sometime in August. It's going to be twofold. It'll be an online exhibition and sale, but it'll also be a physical exhibition that will be up through the end of the year. So people will have a chance to see the work in person, purchase the work, but they won't be able to take it until the end of the year. But it's going to be very exciting because it's the community once again coming together for Guildhall as they have done in the past. And as we want to celebrate our 90th anniversary next year, we're excited and thrilled that we have the support of our local community behind us.
That's great. Well, All for the Hall sounds like a great idea. And I'm so excited. I got chills when you were telling me all the artists who are participating. We wish 90 plus more years for Guildhall. Andrea Grover, Christina Strassfield, thank you so much for joining us at Facts at 5. We will be working together, I'm sure, more this summer with LTV and Guildhall. And guildhall.org for more information. Yeah, thank you.
Great.